Hi, my name is Willow Huffman, and today I'm going to be going over my prompt one for the seminar course in the summer. My first thing is my standards. So I have my big main standard and my substandards. My big standard is the structure and apply style, and students will build and apply knowledge about language and organizational structures and elements used to convey and arrange ideas and information in a text. There's the substandards with it. I also have a writing standard with it as well, and that is pretty much students are describing the beginning, middle, and end of a story, which is what my focus is for this presentation. The content. So students are required to sequence the main events of the story, describe the characters, retell the beginning, middle, and end, ask and answer questions about the story, role play to show the order of the events in the story. So the role play is going to be my reteaching moment, and I will go more into depth about that. The teacher is required to teach that academic language, figure out how to keep the students interested, the depth of the standards, create an example, ensuring students understand how to identify the major events of the story, and help give the students reading strategies. So for differentiation, I have this quote from Beasley and Beck. It says, differentiation means tailoring instruction to meet the individual needs. Whether teachers differentiate content, process, or products, or the learning environment, the use of ongoing assessment and flexible group making makes this a successful approach to instruction. So I think that teachers must make choices based on their students of how they want to have their students demonstrate their knowledge to the best of their ability. The idea of differentiating is to meet the needs of all students at their level while still making it challenging. So focusing on what every student needs. Some students may need this and something a little more easier versus other students who may need something a little bit more challenging. And I go into that for my instructional strategies. I'll show you more about that. So here I have different demonstrations of differentiation, groups based on reading ability, but will change each week based on a student progress, different requirements for the same assignment, draw versus writing sentences, or provide pictures instead of sentences, teacher support, partner and group support, writing checklists to promote self-assessment on a story that they create, and sentence starters. So these are some of the things that we had for the assignment that I did. This is, I'm sorry because I have to figure out how to say it and not pronounce it wrong, peta, peta, pedagogical, I'm sorry about that, pedagogical content knowledge. So I have my quick quote up here. Both teachers' pedagogical knowledge and teachers' subject matter knowledge are crucial to good teaching and student understanding. So pedagogical content knowledge is something unique for teachers, and it is the specific type of knowledge that is based on how a teacher relates to what they know about teaching and the subject matter. So in other words, it's the ability for a teacher to organize their knowledge of subject matters such as reading or writing from a teaching perspective and not just as the expert of the subject. So what contributes to it? Subject matter knowledge, a teacher's knowledge of a student's abilities, learning strategies, and prior knowledge, a teacher's understanding of social, political, cultural, physical environments that students are learning. So to be able to effectively teach it means you're using your pedagogical content knowledge to understand how your students present the content, how to present the content to them given their previous knowledge and learning abilities. This is where presentation is key. I can use this knowledge to better adapt my classroom instruction and transform and present concepts and ideas in ways that make sense to all students. So for my instructional strategy here, I have a sequencing chart. So I have a quote here from Communication Community. The ability to sequence events and comprehend information in chronological fashion is crucial for the development of solid literacy skills. So I chose a sequencing chart for this because they help students organize events in the order that they happen. This helps with reading comprehension by helping students understand the beginning, middle, and end of a story. It also helps strengthen the skills as students start to identify the cause and effect relationship, which is also a big standard that we focus on in second grade. So this is where I started to notice that students really struggle when it comes to comprehension. And since we've started implementing those sequencing charts, it has helped significantly. Students understand the beginning, middle, and end, and this helps improve their writing when we ask them to write about the beginning and middle end of a story. It also helps with other subjects, including math, which is a step-by-step process. What comes first, next, then, and last. We make sure to constantly touch back on this standard throughout the year to make sure that we are consistently reinforcing it. So here I have my reteaching part. Before, what we would do is we would give the students a sequencing chart and their book, the story that we've read, and we would tell them to look through the book and kind of organize the events in order. That didn't feel like it was working, and most of the students were getting confused about what was coming first, next, and last, even with the book next to them. So in this video, students participated in a role play in the sequence of events, Turkey Trouble. I had them participate in the role play before completing the assignments to help them physically experience the order of events instead of just reading the book and writing about it. When students act out the beginning and the beginning, middle, and end of the story or process, they can better understand what happens first and next and then and last. This hands-on activity keeps the students engaged, which is something that the teacher needed to do, and supports different learning styles and makes the abstract concepts more concrete. Role-playing also encourages discussion and collaboration. So right here, I have a couple of my artifacts. So I have my sequencing worksheet that I can't click on right now because of the way I'm taking the video, but I will attach the slides to this so you can click on, and it's just the beginning, middle, and end of our Turkey Trouble. I also have a differentiation, I have something that's differentiated included as well. So one part has sentences where the students are going to include that in order, and the one part has just pictures for those who need the pictures. And then in these two videos, this is me reteaching the role play, and I go on with the students and I kind of start off being the main actor to kind of build more confidence in the classroom and letting students know it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be funny in situations like this. I'm not requiring you to be all hands on deck in this situation. So I was helping, encouraging the acting, and then by that time they started to build more confidence in seeing that I was doing it, and they started raising their hands because they wanted to do it. They were coming up with their own prompts instead of relying on me to give them what to say. So the reason I chose to do interactive role play was I wanted to help build my students' confidence in the classroom. This was something new in my room, and you could tell from the video that most of my students still had a hard time acting out their part. I made sure to help them by giving them what to say, telling them who they were talking to. This helped significantly because students who never raised their hands chose to participate. It also helped for future projects where students went to the front of the room to present. So, like I said, building the confidence in the classroom, because they were coming up or just standing at their desk presenting their character from the book, they started to feel more confident. And when we would have moments in the classroom where they could come up and present, they wanted to, because I wanted to make sure that they felt safe and they knew that they were safe in the environment. Another instructional strategy I have is learning centers. So I chose learning centers because it allows me to easily differentiate student work in all subject areas. It puts students into a small group so that I can better instruct them at their level, and it provides them with work that meets their needs. So students are better able to focus on all of their assignments in smaller group settings and to have a scaffold support. Learning centers can be places where students practice skills and develop concept mastery in an environment that stimulates interest and creativity. So basically, this slide is talking about how important learning centers are, and how in using these learning centers, you're making sure to meet the needs of all students. You're able to differentiate each group to what they need instead of just here's this, here's this, here's this. So here I talked about how the learning centers help differentiate to meet all the needs of all students. So the different centers can range from learning games, interactive games, independent learning, or partner learning, which each activity is given can also be changed depending on the group's ability. And having a teacher table also provides a window for a small group teaching that is adapted to a specific group's needs within the content area for that day. So the learning centers can be used across all areas for reading, math, science, social studies, incorporating that into all subjects. And it helps with each student and helps you make sure that you're getting one-on-one time with 4 or 5 students instead of everything being whole group. So for example, the students who are learning about story elements and how the beginning, middle, end of a story are connected, we also learn about stars in space within our science curriculum. So one of the sentences will have students write their own stories about being in space and things that they may find. They will use their knowledge of stories to create a structured narrative using scientific facts. So the learning centers aren't just focused on one subject, it's different for each group. Here's an example of my stations from that time, and I will make sure to attach the links so everybody can click on them. So For each center, the first part right here, the teacher table, 3-part drill, and the sentence trees, I like to focus on one group per day to make sure I'm giving each group their designated time with me. I don't want to feel rushed. I don't want to feel like they don't have time to be able to do anything. So every day, starting Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Mondays, we start our rotations, and I make sure to meet with each group and give them the ample time that they need with me. But as you go down, you start to see we have story sequencing, cause and effect, days of the week. That was just the language stuff, language activity that we were doing. And then here we have story elements. So all of these things focus on our story, but they're focusing on beginning, middle, end, the cause and effect, which is another standard we need to focus on. Story sequencing, story elements like problem, solution, setting, characters. So these are all right here. We have the beginning, middle, end organizers, cause and effect sheet, compare and contrast, and then our story elements paper, which is the problem, setting, and solution, and characters. So conferencing, here's another instructional strategy, conferencing. During a small group instruction, I would conference with students and reteach how to identify the beginning, middle, and end of a story. We would revisit the story together, discussing important events that occurred in each part and why they belong in that section. Students would have opportunities to share their thinking and explain how they determined the sequence of events. After reviewing the story structure, we would work collaboratively to organize the events in order and complete the sequence of events on the page. This guided practice would help strengthen students' understanding of story sequencing while providing the support that they need to successfully complete the activity independently. So we include conferencing because it allows me to give direct feedback to the students on their work and help them succeed. It also allows me to easily differentiate my feedback according to what the students are doing in the moment at that time. Giving students the one-on-one conversation about their works helps improve their overall confidence and classroom skills. Instead of giving broad feedback to the entire classroom, I'm able to specifically tell each student what they need to focus on and how well they're doing in a specific area. This will help improve their confidence. This will help improve their skills in the classroom, overall making it a very positive environment in the classroom. And then here I have my works cited page on all of the articles that I use to find my quotes. Thank you again for listening to my prompt 1.